Hi, I'm Matt from patriotmusic.com. Today, I'd like to present a little thought experiment, something as we celebrate our Republic's 250th anniversary. Imagine if we could bring back any of our founding fathers to the present day for a video interview. What impressions would we be left with? Now imagine that they're in modern clothing and they don't have powdered wigs on, so that's not a distraction. First, I think we'd be impressed with how young they were, with a few exceptions like Benjamin Franklin. In 1776, for example, Alexander Hamilton was in his late teens or early 20s. James Madison was 25. Thomas Jefferson was 33. John Adams was 40. And then I think you might notice the difference in language and how it's evolved. But I also think that we'd be impressed with their eloquence and their vocabulary. Now, underlying their speech would be a confidence from being self-sufficient and taking risks. They valued their individual relationship with their Creator, and they prayed that He would reward a moral and hardworking people with a successful new nation. Providence. I think we would sense their faith as well. One word that we wouldn't hear them say is democracy. Americans were among the most literate people at the time in the 18th century, and they all despised democracy. They knew their history. They knew that all democracies eventually failed. Many of them were aristocrats fighting against aristocracy. They put their families, their lives, and their possessions on the line to institute a meritocracy where people would be judged by their work ethic and their talent. Today, on the other hand, there are entire industries that are dominated by nepotism, aristocracy. I think you'd also be struck with how polite they were. Men were gentlemen and women were ladies because they respected both themselves and others. And I think you would detect their honesty and their dedication to honor. How many that we celebrate today in the media would you say are dedicated to honor or even know what it is? And yet our founders were human beings. They had their faults. They were products of their time and their upbringing, but their lives were also a lot harder than ours are today, and their world was much less forgiving. But they didn't look to some abstract concept like society to either blame their problems on or to have solved them. They did it themselves. They revolutionized history by creating a system where the individual is guaranteed inalienable rights, and they codified them with a constitution and a Bill of Rights that gave no power to government other than the very few that they listed. Today, on the other hand, there are millions of federal laws and regulations and millions more on the state level. They also took on the greatest military at the time for taxes that were a fraction of what they are today, and they won. And when it was over, they had tremendous debt, but they paid it. They didn't keep growing government and printing money at the expense of their children. They took responsibility and they fixed it. If they were here today, I would say that these young men would be the adults in the room. So remember what our founders really were and how we've benefited from the qualities and principles that they represented. And if you like this piece, check out my award-winning independent rock and other videos at patriotmusic.com. Thank you, and may God bless America.